Welcome to Small Business Big Visibility. I am so excited to share our next guest, Sheli G. She is a CliftonStrengths finder. She's a coach, a speaker, consultant, accidental comedian. Sheli, tell everyone your story.
Oh my gosh, which one?
How'd
Oh,
you
what
get
am I
into
telling?
comedy? How did that happen?
How to get into comedy? Okay, let's go there. It's really funny. I did a conference here in Boise, Idaho called WeCon, Women Ignite, for 10 years. This last year was my 10th year. And one year I had a speaker and she was in kind of the improv comedy world a little bit. And she said, you ought to try comedy. And she'd heard me talk and she knew that sometimes I would say something cheeky or funny. And I remember in that moment just thinking, oh no, 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 absolutely no way, never. Like there was how you have a visceral response to something? It was like that. And I will never forget getting in my car and sitting there in terror at the thought of stand-up comedy, because what is it's kind of like that boyfriend I had way back when, and he was like, let's go rock climbing, and you're going to fall at some point. Like, yeah, I have a rope, I'm not going to die, but like it's going to be horrible and I'm going to feel like I'm dying. And I sat there and I was so terrified, I decided that I had to do it because there's not that many things that scare me like that. It was like, let's see, sharks, heights, and stand-up comedy. Yep, those are the ones. And so not only did I get into it, but I did a contest. And so you don't just have a room full of people judging you, which is typical and always, but like you literally have judges judging you.
Oh,
And it
wow.
was absolutely the most terrifying experience of my life and super fun. And I knew that I would learn a lot and I overcame that fear. And weirdly enough, like I get some calls to do event comedy now, which I never thought that would even be possible, but it's definitely cool when you feel that nudge, right? I'm not saying do everything. I'm not that person. It's like everything that scares you, do it. No, it might kill you. So don't just do everything. But that being said, when you know that you know that you know you're being challenged, do the
Mm,
thing
yeah.
and don't regret it.
And so what was that conference that you did, and how did you get into the whole conference world?
You know, that's a funny story too. So I was a speaker. I've been speaking for a long, long time on different topics, and I was speaking at a women's conference in Boise. It was a conference trade show, and I was the last speaker on the last day. And long story short, like I was friends with the event planner, especially by the end of it, because I realized like the marketing was kind of short or whatever. So I was trying to help create marketing and get the message out there. And I think she saw that. And at the end, she was like, I'm going to hang it up. I'm not going to do this anymore, but you should do a women's event. You should do an annual women's event. And once again, this is a common theme in my life. I'm like, no, 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 no. I mean, my, and I snort. But my head, I was like, no, 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 not on my radar. My target market's not co-ed. Women are the hardest audience. There, I said it. It's true. They're so hard when it's all women in the audience. Terrifying, actually. And it wasn't on my radar. And I definitely didn't have time, right? We never have time, but I had learned by then that to think about it, pray about it, because sometimes your initial reaction is not always the truth or the final reaction, right? Sometimes it's just a shock, or it's not on your radar, but somebody's planted a seed, and sometimes those seeds, if you're willing, take root. So I literally did. I prayed about it, and I literally was interviewing all these women that they were like, "We've gone every year for 5 years," and I'm like, "Why? What did you get out of it? I wasn't interested in doing like a motivational conference where Monday it wears off and then actually people feel worse than before because they're like, now what? I was all excited, but now I don't know what to do. I didn't want to do that. And I just didn't want to do another event in Idaho that I felt like we've got a lot of events, but I'm like, what's the gap? Like what's missing and what do I need to do? And all these women just started saying, oh, that one speaker recommended that book that she wrote and it saved my marriage. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then somebody else was like, I changed my careers because of somebody that I met and it's been a game changer for me. Or somebody else was like, I went into business with somebody that I met, or I met my best friend. And I was like, wow, these are like breakthrough, systemic transformational things. And that's the kind of thing I do with my coaching, my consulting, my speaking, even my comedy. It's like it's all about helping people see who they are, see that we're better together, how to collaborate, and bring your message and your magic to the world. So then I'm like, crap, I have to do this. I have to do this. So it's really like a God nudge for me. I'm a faith person. and did it not having a clue that it would be a whole business, right? Have you ever done that where you're like, you do a thing thinking it's a thing, but then it's like a thing, you know?
You're right.
And it turned into masterminds and, a coaching program pre-COVID. There was a lot more to it pre-COVID, and has been such a huge way for me to pay it forward, like a lot of the things I know and can teach, but also bring together some really diverse humans, and men too, but young professionals, classic professionals, brown, black, white, just all these diverse humans together to bring their story, their strategy, their message in, arguably one of the most diverse conferences Idaho's seen. And it was a real gift, to me. And I've met some of the most amazing humans ever.
So that conference that you didn't want to do led you to comedy that you didn't want to do. So what, and now you're thriving, right? And loving this new world that you've discovered because you stepped into the unknown. So what have you now stepped into and what are you doing today?
I'll still take that comedy event here and there. Like, love doing the holiday or the corporate event. I'm a clean comedian, so the bars don't like me. I'm just not quite dirty enough. I'm not dirty martini enough for them. But I love, love, love teaching Clifton Strengths. It used to be called Strengths Finders, but it was renamed several years back to Clifton Strengths. I do a lot of that. I'm writing a book on that. And
Wow.
I'm a mindset, I like to think of it as a well-being coach for Russell Brunson, who's the co-founder of ClickFunnels, which is a leading digital marketing software, books, community, amazing. In fact, you and I connected at Funnel Hacking Live this year. We were like, hey, Idahoans in the house,
That's
Uh,
right.
kind of amazing. So that's been a really, really cool thing. And I was an all in-person person before. So my coaching, my consulting, comedy, speaking, it was all in person. And so it's been fun to come more into the digital age of, this well-being or this mindset, team building, hiring, coaching I do for Russell Brunson for his masterminds. So they pay to play with him. They pay big bucks. They have to qualify, doing at least $1 million a year, or some of them much, much, much more, just through their digital funnels to qualify for that group. And I get to coach these awesome humans from all over the world via Zoom. And so it's a work from anywhere gig. And then in April, like, he'll bring them to Boise and we get to all sit around and mastermind their challenges, their opportunities, what they're working on. And it is just fire. It's been so much fun.
Wow, that sounds incredible to be able to be there sharing and helping and growing their mindset. That yeah, sounds amazing. So how does the Clifton Strengths fit into this? What
Yeah,
talk
that's
to
one
me
of the
about
big
that? Yeah.
things. Yeah, it's been super fun. Like, in the ClickFunnels world and Russell Brunson's world, they really were heavy into the disc, which is pretty typical. Like, a lot of people have used that tool. Great tool. To me, it's kind of a great starter tool. It's a good beginner personality assessment tool. It's a little bit light. It's kind of like personality light. And he's got a platform called understand.me. Very, very cool. So there's 5 different personality or psychological assessments kind of all rolled up on that platform. Understand.me, I think you can still create your own profile. And it's Enneagram and DISC, Myers-Briggs, love languages, and Clifton Strengths. And so what's cool is like, for example, if I have a team, or even as a coach, if I'm coaching somebody, but if you're a manager, you're managing a team, whether it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 people, you could literally go to their understand.me profile and see all of those things in one place. So for example, if you see a disc or something, it's not going to tell you their love language. Do they like gifts? Do they like words of affirmation? Do they need lots of encouragement? Do they want quality time with you? Like, maybe for a bonus, don't give the person that wants quality time a gift card to Starbucks, right? They want a lunch with you or a coffee with you instead. And so, anyway, it's really, really cool because in a snapshot, you can just see how to really speak into someone's life, coach them up, support them, whether it's a
Mm.
friend, family member, team member. Love, love, love that. So I've really been the Clifton Strengths expert on that team. They've got another coach that knows all of these really well too, but I've been kind of geeking out and obsessed with Clifton Strengths for 16 years now. And I don't really teach it the Gallup way. I teach it in a very different, unique way. And I kind of bring all of my entrepreneurialism Started my first gig when I was 26 years old. I'm a recovered mortgage broker. Thank you. And and I bring together all the life coaching, the personal development. I got into personal development also at age 26, had no idea what I was getting into, thought I joined a cult for a minute. It was a little terrifying. And then it really changed the trajectory of my whole life
Mhm.
and really got my calling to help people in more of a deep transformational way in that workshop in Boise, Idaho at 26 years old. And so I kind of bring all of that with this tool that's incredible, that's actually a psychological assessment, not a personality assessment. It's created by a PhD. It's very deep, it's very wide if you understand it. Like if you kind of get coached up on it, or you're a learner where you really dive into the research. If you just kind of see them and go about your way, it's a lot more complex. And so a lot of people don't really understand it or even remember what their strengths are. But if you really dive deep with this one, it can absolutely change your business, your marriage, your parenting, your the way you're a friend, the way you lead and love the world.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty intense.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm kind of intense. So it's a good thing I did comedy, right? Otherwise I'd probably be like, oh my gosh, it's a little much, Sheli G.
So shifting back for just a second, because you mentioned comedy and also you talked about how things have kind of cycled. So I did an interview the other day with John Parks, and another ClickFunnels guy, and he was talking
Yeah.
about how business goes in these cycles, and sometimes you're up on top of the world, sometimes you're building, sometimes it's going down, sometimes you're in the bottom and you have to climb back up again. So for you, how has comedy helped in those
Oh,
cycles?
oh, it's so good. Look, most comedians get into it because it's another form of therapy. Don't be fooled, right? It's a cathartic experience if you're not doing it too soon when you're too fragile and you fall apart on the stage. Too soon doesn't work. That's where that phrase comes from. um Timing is everything, and like how you work it out is everything. But if you notice, most of the best comedy is from their real life. Yes, it might be exaggerated and all of that, but most of it's from their real life. I don't even exaggerate. My life could just be kind of crazy and hilarious if I'm willing to laugh at it. So I don't even exaggerate that much, and it could still be really funny. But it even comes from deeply painful things. I mean, I've seen some of the best comedy I've ever seen was around cancer, divorce, Tourette's. I mean, deep things that touch a lot of people, and something touches all of us, right? We've all been given this deck of cards for whatever reason, and some of these cards we like, and some of them are hard cards. And for some of us, it's similar, and some of us, it's different. But if you're alive long enough, you're going to have these big challenges. And comedy has a wonderful way, if you're willing to really learn the strategy behind the craft, because it's like anything else. You lift up the hood and you're like, oh, there's a whole strategy and a framework and a thing and a deal to this.
Mm.
Turns out, just like there is to everything. It's a lot about writing the comedy. Performing it becomes pretty easy after a while. It's the writing of it and the figuring out how to take a premise to a punchline, if you will, and make other people laugh, not just your friends and family around the dinner table or at the bar. That's the magic of it. But it is, I think, in a way, that is one of the reasons why I did it. I think subconscious moves us way more than conscious does the majority of the time. Consciously, I think I knew I needed it. I knew I needed to make some of my experiences with my autistic son into comedy.
Mm.
And I ended up paying him for one of those jokes, but that's another story. So that I could use the joke, right? He's like, you owe me money, mom. Anyway, comedy around being an entrepreneur, yeah, parent stuff, comedy around your own insecurities, your own fears, and that relatable comedy about taking pain. And when we get to the point we can laugh about it and help other people laugh too, it's part of the healing journey. It's definitely not the whole thing. We can't just do that part, but it is part of that healing journey and part of what makes us vulnerable and accessible to other human beings. And who regrets laughing? Laughing is a release just like crying is.
Mhm.
So, in a way, you're helping your audience heal from some of their things too, which is really cool.
Yeah. That's really neat, because I think in today's world, there's so many business owners that are struggling. There's so many people that I've heard that they're either on the downward trajectory, hit bottom or are trying to figure out how do I climb back up, right? And
Mhm.
like that's a real
Yeah.
thing going on right now. So I love this idea of that they can tap into the comedy side and maybe take that big scary thing and look at it from another angle and be like, oh, it's not so bad from over here, right? And change their
Yeah.
perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember I went to one of my friends and, like sadly he went through a divorce, but
Mm.
it's also a common thing. Like a lot of us or a lot of our friends or whatever have been through this. And I remember going to his show after he got divorced. And I mean, I'm just laughing about it, remembering how hard I laughed. I can still remember it. It was years ago. It's like before COVID. But he was like, one of the things he talked about was, why don't we do reveals for our divorce on Facebook, just like we do gender reveals and da da da. Like, you could have like your happy like before picture, and then you have your after picture where you're like, your back's back to back, and there's like a jagged line between you and you're mad. And I'm just like, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but it's so funny. Like divorce reveals. I think that's funny. And it's like I knew that he even at that moment was still in a lot of pain. Like he kind of pretty soon started working it into his comedy. And it might have been bumpy at first a little bit because he was kind of raw, but like you could see the genius in it too. And it's so relatable that just for a minute, if I can quit trying to save myself, save the world, have a breakthrough, have more faith, whatever it is we're always trying to achieve and do, just take a beat, just laugh about it a little bit, realize you're human, realize life's going to happen to you, realize either we make mistakes or other people sometimes do things and we're in the zip code and it affects us, it laps over onto us. And one of the many things that we can do to heal or just decompress and get our systems regulated again is laugh about it. So I highly encourage you. Stand up mics are weird in Boise. I don't really know if that's the way, but maybe we should just have an open mic in Boise that's not typical stand-up comedians, where people just get up and story tell. Like a lot of what I do is I story tell.
Mm.
And just like I said, tell mostly my real life stories that other people think are funny. And now at least I can laugh at them too, even if in the moment I was devastated and crying. But here's one pro tip I wish I knew before I tried it. There's workbooks on Amazon that you can get that you can actually, they strategically take you through. Oh, write down your most embarrassing moments. Write down the thing you think is funny, but that's a premise. It's not worked out for stage comedy yet, but it could be. So write it down, and then it kind of shows you how to strategically work it out and write comedy. I wish I would have known about workbooks. There's several of them on Amazon. Highly recommend. And do the thing. You only suck until you don't. Good news.
That's right. So have you ever taught people how to be comedians?
No, but I've actually thought about having like an open mic for non-comedians who are not necessarily barflies with depression and alcoholics that just hang out in bars every night. Because, I'm not going to say that's what a lot of the open mics are, but it's possible some of it is sometimes. So, for somebody like me, they're not even going to laugh at my stuff. Like, don't be fooled, right? Like, I parachuted in there and like, who's this mom life coach that what's she doing here? And that becomes the biggest joke. And it's a little productive because I want to figure out if my stuff's funny. So, like, my open mic is when I do speaking events or I'm coaching and somebody thinks what I say is funny. And sometimes I don't even know it's funny. I'm like, oh, they thought that was funny. Okay. And so then I work it into my stuff. But I thought, what would it be like to just kind of like how improv groups get together and they kind of riff like a band gets together and riffs? What if people that want to speak, and I think speakers should learn comedy too, put comedy in your stuff, right? Because if you're funny, nobody's going to be mad at you about that. They're not going to go home and go, dang, she made me laugh today. That's a bummer. What a waste of time. They're going to be like, yes, that was like the best dopamine hit, healthy one I've had all week. It's much better than Game of Thrones. God likes this one much better when it's clean comedy. So, like, what if we got together and put together like an open mic night for speakers, podcasters, influencers who want
Sign
to,
me up. I'll come.
right?
Let's do
Okay,
it.
well, maybe we should co-host this event. That would be really fun because I think more people should lean into it, even just for fun and sport, not even to, ever have to do anything with it. Just
Right.
healthier ways to decompress, regulate, laugh, and connect with other humans. And you never know. Maybe you will end up doing comedy like me because I never thought the first person that called me to do comedy and they wanted to pay me, I was like, are you kidding me? Really? Okay, I mean, right. Of course you would have hired me. Sure. I didn't see it coming. And so sometimes we say yes if it feels right.
Mhm.
If you feel that nudge and you don't know what you don't know, you don't know the doors that are going to open. Like I'd be curious for you at FHL. Did you meet somebody or learn something, or did you get an epiphany while you were sitting there, even just of your very own, that you wouldn't have had without taking that opportunity?
I would have to say it completely shifted my brain. It shifted me huge ways. I can't even list all the ways that
Really?
being there shifted me. Yeah, and we
What's the biggest one that you think?
oh, man, the biggest one was Trent Shelton, and I actually put it on my wall. He said, "If God led me to it, God will lead me through it." And that alone has just shifted everything in my mindset. Like
Yep.
there's no reason to fear anything anymore. My
Right.
body will fear, and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, yeah, that's a natural response that my body will have because it's trying to protect me.
Mhm.
But I've got someone on my team that's got my back.
Yeah.
End of story. Right?
Yeah.
So
You have gap insurance. You
exactly.
do. Like whatever
Infinity
I
gap
don't got,
insurance.
he's got. That's what I call it. Whatever when I became a parent, I'm like, what am I doing? I'm holding this baby. I'm like, what? Why did he entrust this child to me? I lose my keys every day. Um, and it's like he's my gap insurance. Whenever that catastrophic thinking, which is also very common, very normal, imposter syndrome, very common, very normal, when that stuff comes in, just know it's normal. Good. Congratulations, you're a human being and you're alive today because that's what happens with our brains. And if we sit with it, it starts to really stop us up and get us stuck from doing what we need to do, whether it's in our business, in our family, in our, spiritual walk, whatever it is. But if we just realize, okay, if you're a faith person, it's like, he's got it. I'm here for a purpose. This isn't all accidental. And so why don't I quit focusing on what I can't do and focus on what I can do? How about that? The single most debilitating thought you can think about is something that you can't control. Now, I'm not talking about the thing that you think you can't control, like, well, I just don't know what to do with my business, so I guess I can't do anything about it. Well, there's always something we can do for our business, even if it's close it, which I've done before, right? Or start it, or change it, or scale it, or whatever it is. There's always something that can be done that way. Um, but like the most debilitating thought is, well, I can't control the presidential election or the economy or the housing prices. No, I'm pretty sure I can't control the housing prices. Pretty clear about that. What can I do today, right now, with what I've got to make a difference either in my life, in somebody else's, or both, which are the best days ever, right?
Totally. Yeah. And just that recognition of being able to say, hey, I can't control that. I accept I can't control that. But the fact that I can't control that doesn't mean that it controls me either. Right.
Correct. Yeah, that's that catastrophic thinking. And it's really easy to go down the rabbit hole, right? You get online and everybody, what's the media going to talk about? Bad news. What sells? Bad news. That's what sells, right? I thought it was really interesting. I love audibles. I listened to the to the book Spare
Mm.
by Prince Harry. And it was very vulnerable, very real, and it's just so behind the scenes of like this fishbowl life that these people live. I mean, what a very hard life. And he's just so transparent about, all the things that they go through and like you look on the outside and it looks fantastic and oh, you've got money and you're beautiful and you're this and you're that and it's like that is not a great life. And how much out of control feeling that they had. They just they couldn't even defend themselves with defamation to the press because it's like, no, they own us. They're paying us a check so that we're they're slaves. And, so many things are not what they appear. And everybody that's human being, I don't care where you come from, what your status is, I don't care what's in your bank account today. If it's a negative $10 or if it's 10 million, the human experience is tough. It's also beautiful. It is difficult. And I think one of the reasons it's difficult is because I think we're born in community to need community. If I could just control it all, I wouldn't need you, dude. I wouldn't need God. I wouldn't need a partner or a friend or a therapist. And trust me, I need those things a lot, especially the therapist and Jesus. So if we were just if we could control everything and we just didn't have fear, didn't ever have worry, how invincible would we be responding? We wouldn't have connection. We wouldn't have these big breakthroughs that do sometimes come after our storms. And sometimes I know in my life, there's big redirects that happen through the storms and after the storms, especially. Like COVID's a good recent example, right? A lot of businesses went out, a lot of businesses started, and a lot of us changed. And some of that is very difficult, and there's grief there. And I get it, me too. Also, there's been cool adaptations and evolutions, and like everybody learned how to do Zoom. Like there was cool things that happened. And now I'm in a job that wasn't even really on my radar before COVID. Loving it, and
Right.
I pushed myself to become a female auctioneer during COVID. Why? Because I had nothing to do. All my gigs canceled. And even though I was broke, I'm like, it sounds like a good idea to go to Montana and be a female auctioneer because when else am I going to have the time? I normally say I don't have the time, and turns out I had a lot of time. And so I just decided my excuses were not bigger than my dreams and the things that I was being nudged to do. And following that nudge when it's the right thing has meant all the difference for me.
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating these terrible times that people go through and they have the difficulties. It oftentimes is that here, there's a new direction to go in. Take this new opportunity, right? And we're sitting comfortably, and the growth doesn't happen when we're comfortable, right? It always happens when we're uncomfortable. That's when we're truly growing.
I mean, I think it's a different kind of growth. I think when you're growing in positive, awesome ways, there's growth there because that does show you, oh, here's some of your strengths. Here's some of your
Mhm.
superpowers. Cool. You're using them correctly and stewarding them well. Cool. If we are stewarding them well and correctly. And so you learn some things, but but I think clearly there's a huge humility factor that gets checked. Like I'm always like, don't pray for patience because you'll get it, like I think about that Mother Teresa quote, which I just love, love, love. She's like, God, I know that won't give me anything that I can't handle, but I just wish you didn't trust me so much sometimes, right? Remember, there's a limit, and I felt that way. You felt that way. Guaranteed, we've all felt that way, probably many, many times. But yes, I'm reaching out, going to therapy. I've learned so much through therapy. Those people are pretty smart. They know a lot of things about the body, mind, spirit, and the way all of that's connected,
Mm.
in ways that have absolutely mentored me. I have changed course with things that, yes, to your point, now I've got doors that are open that I've walked through and I'm doing today only because the space was created to actually rethink, reimagine everything, learn new things, and let go of some of what I was doing that I loved. I mean, I loved everything I was doing before COVID, but for me, however it came about, God was agitating me up and out of some of those things just to move me on to my next chapter. They were beautiful. They were the right chapter at that time, but now I have a new chapter. And I think that's important too, not holding on to nostalgia and, where we were comfortable. And, it's only comfortable till it's not. Once you reach your own ceiling, and God, the universe, however you think about it, pushes you to your what's next, it's going to get more and more and more uncomfortable till you're either ejected out of that bad boy or you see the way and choose to move on. And sometimes we don't choose to move on when we like kind of where we are. So sometimes we get agitated up and out, and it's really hard and ugly and scary at first. And then when you're willing and when you choose to continue to lean into it and do the work and adapt and evolve and continue learning your whole life, you step into that next chapter. And at some point, that dust settles and you start to get really grateful that it's like, oh my gosh, if I was still holding on, right, to this country and hadn't left that country to go here, I wouldn't be blessed like I am today.
Yeah. So kind of a difficult, not a real, there's not a real right answer to it, but what are your thoughts on how do you know when it's the right thing to push and lean into it
Mm.
versus shifting, pivoting, and moving to that new country? Where is that? How do you make that decision?
Right? I think that's hard. And I think, I think we're adorable as human beings. Like we all want this quick, easy, snap-on template. Here's the 5 steps to know when it's the chapter's ending. And wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
And In my life, I have never found that to be the case. But what I have found is when I'm willing to take the time, sometimes I might know instantly that's not for me or that is for me.
Mm-hmm.
Early on in my life, especially with the career that I leaned into with not just professional development with humans, but the personal development too, right? Kind of the holistic human. The whole person goes to work, the whole human goes home, looking at the whole human.
Yeah.
So as I started facilitating really deep dive personal growth, one of the things I had to really look at to understand and discern inside of myself was what's just an emotional response from me? Because I might feel like yes or feel like no, like when I said no to comedy and no to that women's event before I said yes, because yes was ultimately the absolute 100% right answer on both of those. But initially, it was either the fear or just the unknown or just the weirdness or just what it's pattern interrupt, not on my radar. So my emotions said no, but as I did the work and I did the research and I prayed about it or whatever that journey looks like for you, and it's going to look different with each thing, right? In each season, you don't know that you know that you know until you know. And once you know it, you can't unknow it.
Yeah.
But until you know it, you don't know it. So it's true with a relationship. When do I cut off a toxic person, right? It could be a family member, could even be a spouse. That's hard. And I just had a conversation with somebody this morning. You can't just be like, oh, you're getting abused, you should get out. Well, guess what? It's really complicated. And here's all the reasons why. And what's right for me may not be right for you. Like that's your own journey with your code of conduct and honor and like your nudges, your faith, whatever all factors into that. So for me, sometimes I just know intuitively kind of right away. And when I say intuition for me, that's like a God thing. That's more
Yeah.
like that my intuition, my gut is never wrong because it's like this more spiritual space. My emotions have been wrong sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes my intellect or my experience can be wrong because you hear past predicts the future. Um, it can, unless it doesn't.
Right.
It can until it doesn't. If you've ever read the book, Be Your Future Self Now, highly, highly, highly recommend. Dr. Benjamin Hardy, Be Your Future Self Now. It's an Audible as well. And the past can predict the future if we let it, because we just kind of keep recreating, right? If we don't continue to learn, we won't evolve.
Mm-hmm.
We won't know what to do. If we're not open to the possibility of a new possibility, there won't be a new possibility. If we don't believe we can change, we won't. I mean, there's a lot of ways that a lot of people, yes, say stay stuck and don't evolve. But if you have that vision of that future self, right? And you're really clear and and that can evolve over time too. But like you reverse engineer that to today and say, I'm building that person. So I'm going to act like that person. If I want to be a millionaire, what does a millionaire do today? He doesn't buy coffee every day at Starbucks. Sorry. Most of them don't actually that I know, right? They're very mindful about that. Like how do I act like that right now? I'm going to act like that future self because then I'm domino by domino building that future self even now, right?
Yeah.
Or if I act like I acted before COVID, what am I building? I'm going to build, not very successfully pre-COVID, Shelley, because they don't have the same context as before. So it won't work anymore. It's like the obsolete software
Yeah.
program, right? So I think everybody's journey is different, but there's like the intellectual self, your past experience, your emotions, and then that deep intuitive hit or your gut or your spiritual knowing. And sometimes I'm kind of factoring all those in, right? I think God can use your strengths, your experience, your intellect, all of that. But at the end of the day, for me, especially on bigger decisions, it's that nudge. It's that deep spiritual nudge that's like, yes. And I just give God full permission. It's like, close those doors, man. Like, I know I could be ridiculous sometimes. So just red lights, put up barbed wire, shut the door, and then green, 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 green. Not just once, but maybe several nudges, just so that I know that I know that I know this is the right path. Closing chapters is hard. Um, Starting things is hard too, but I think sometimes closing chapters is the hardest because it's just that attachment. And even though we're afraid of staying the same, we're more afraid of the future oftentimes because we don't know the future as well as staying the same. So they're both painful, like they're both scary, but staying the same, I know what's scary and hard and not good here. I don't know what's scary and hard and not good in the what's next. And that's where faith comes in.
Totally. Yeah. I was just listening to something yesterday and they were saying, why do people stay in these horrible circumstances? It's because they've become comfortable in that horrible circumstance and they know it and they can expect that, oh, tomorrow's going to be the same way. I can trust that. I can be comfortable with that. but stepping into that unknown, man, that's even scarier than your comfort and the pain,
Yeah,
right?
I think that's one reason people stay.
Yeah.
I mean, I've stayed in pretty pretty tough things sometimes because God told me to.
Mm-hmm.
Like I prayed about it and God was like, "You stay. You do this. You trust it." I'm like, "Oh, really? Okay." It's not the way I would have played that poker hand. But there's that. Some people stay in a situation because literally safety.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid of losing their job. They're afraid of retribution. They're afraid literally for their life or the life of their children, or some people stay because they just don't have enough support. Like we do need support, right? We need mentors, friends. Sometimes people have supportive families, sometimes they don't. Um, the good news is we're always at choice. We can always build our networks and build them differently and change them up. Um, but sometimes people just don't yet have enough support. And without enough support, they may realize I'm not going to be able to do this really hard thing
Mm-hmm.
if I don't, get. And so sometimes there's a transitionary period to exit something, right? Where they're hopefully strategically planning and working things out, whether it's a job that feels like a prison cell, uh, whether it is an abusive relationship, mentally, spiritually, physically, financially, emotionally. There's lots of ways to abuse or neglect somebody. And sometimes people don't mean to, but they're just not healthy. So it happens. And for each one of us, we have to decide, like, it's not up to me to go, I'm going to clean up your playground. I think you're out of there. That job's not for you. That's not for me to know. And how can I know what you're being called to do, what you're being nudged to do? In fact, sometimes, and I have felt this way too at times where I'm like, people don't understand my calling. And I know I haven't had this really traditional jobs, whatever. Um, but why don't they understand me? Sometimes even you can feel like the people the closest to you sometimes don't understand it. But then one day I had this huge epiphany that I'm like, if God gives me that vision, he downloads that program into me, and I'm the only one he's downloaded that initial inception of that program. How could anyone else understand it? None of them are going to have the visceral response I had. Like I get goosebumps thinking about some of the downloads I've gotten. I'm the only one that could know it like I know it, and I'm definitely the only one that can lean into it and then be happy for the people that get it and come alongside. Understand that the people that don't understand, they've got a lot of their stuff going on also. It's not all about you. And there's no way they can know it like you know it. And good news, they don't need to for you to do the things you're being called to do. I think that's really good news. You can do it anyway. You can build the ark, and everybody's like, "What are you doing? It hasn't rained here for." And it's like, this is the deal. This is what I'm doing.
Yep. Yep.
And I think the other thing is there is something. This is a biblical thing, so if you believe in the Bible, great. If not, it's a great story anyway. But, Jesus at one point talks about, hey, when they didn't listen anymore, I went somewhere else. So sometimes I think, am I creating value? Am I able to create value in the context that I'm in? Whether I'm sitting on a board, whether I'm, volunteering, whether I am doing something for my kid that I think is valuable, but it doesn't seem to be working. Am I really creating value? Not do I think I should? Am I
Mm-hmm.
really actually, and not just for myself, but for someone else? And sometimes when I'm not, then a good thing to do is process and really think about that. Why? And maybe this is not the place for me because I don't think we should be hanging out in a lot of spaces, spending a lot of time where we're not creating value, like healthy, valuable things. So if you're in a super limiting job or a super limiting relationship, it might just be you thinking you're limited when you're not. So that might be a mindset shift or therapy you can walk through, healing, you may be just triggered. But if it's actually you're being suppressed, oppressed, whatever, then maybe it's a good thing to consider. Okay. And sometimes that's on a smaller level, right? Like I sat on a board at one point and I'm like, they're just want me to rubber stamp everything. Like they don't want to collaborate. It's okay. It's just not for me. It
Yeah.
just wasn't my bag. I'm like, I want to spend time and that's my nudging. Spend time where I can create value. And if I can't create value, I actually feel like I'm not stewarding my time well and I start to feel bad. I start to feel guilty. I don't want to take time away from my kids if I'm not creating value. I don't want to even take time just sitting here bored, not creating value. There's just, why am I doing this? I don't want to fake it like, I'm doing something valuable. Nah, I'm not a faker. It's not my jam.
I love that insight. Being able to evaluate if you're creating value, that is such a good metric for people to look at their life on. Kind of that measuring stick of where am I in life? Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah, because there's that story that you tell yourself, right? Like, oh, I'm sharing these posts every day and I bet they're really touching people. Well, if you never hear anybody that's touching, if, like we don't live for the likes or the comments, but if it's just like white, like it's everybody's just ghosting you, like sometimes that's feedback, right? And feedback is data. So sometimes we think of feedback as a bad thing, but like this is just data. It's not necessarily right or wrong, it's just true. What is the
Mhm.
data telling me? And it's interesting to think about that because sometimes we love doing this or talking about this, but if it's not resonating with other people, maybe that's something for you to journal about or talk to your BFF about, but it's not really the thing you're being called to bring to the world.
Yeah, right, exactly. So if people want to get in touch with you, how would they connect with you?
Yeah, my LinkedIn, you could definitely share that LinkedIn. It's Sheli G, but it's spelled weird. It's Sheli
Okay.
G. So I get called Sheila a lot, but it's not Sheila, it's Sheli. It's just one L, one I. So I'm on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you there, stay in the conversation. If, you have a question about something I've shared today or a resource or whatever, happy to help out. And, that's something you can share with them as well.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll drop that in the show notes so people can click that link and
Perfect.
find out and reach out to you. Thank you so much for all the insights that you shared. I almost feel overwhelmed. You've done so much good information in such a short amount of time. It's
Uh-oh,
awesome.
that's feedback. I overwhelmed him.
In a
No,
good way, a good overwhelm.
I really appreciate you bringing me on your show. I just appreciate your positive, forward-thinking spirit. I'm sure that you're touching a lot of people. And at some point, when I open my new podcast, I'll have to have you on my show, and we'll have to geek out about it. You might have to take your Clifton Strengths assessment though, so that
On the
we can
show. Well,
geek out
yeah,
about that.
pull it out on the show and share it with everybody. There we
That'd be
go.
fun.
Well, awesome. Thank you. And thank you all so much for listening to another episode of Small Business Big Visibility. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode.